Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. We started earlier this year talking about a relatively new subject to our area here that's again related to our aerospace activities, both at the center and at UTSI. And our new buzzword is hypersonics, and that happens to be high speed. We talked to Glenn Liston, who is heading a new lab being set up at AEDC that is a branch of the research lab, the Air Force Research Lab out of Wright-Patt. His organization is called the High Speed Experimentation Branch, and so it'll take him a year or two to get going. And meanwhile, directly related to his activity is a new position at UTSI, and we have a new prof coming in there, and we also have a great deal of other activity that comes along with that. And that is Dr. John Schmisseur, and we have him here with us today, so we want to introduce you to him. As I say, he's a professor at UTSI and will be doing research and teaching, and working very closely with Glenn Liston's group at the center, and we want to find out how all this works. So, Dr. Schmisseur, thanks very much for joining us, and we look forward to talking with you. Did I explain what we have going on satisfactorily?
Absolutely.
Anything? Okay. And so let's begin then with a little personal info, if you will. Tell us a little bit about your background. And
absolutely. First, let me say thanks for having me today. I really appreciate you and your viewers taking the time to hear more about some of our plans at the Space Institute. So my family and I moved here from Northern Virginia about a year ago, just last July. And I left after 23 years working for the Air Force Research Laboratory. So Glenn Liston and his whole crew are good friends of mine. I've known those guys for quite a while. And was very fortunate to have an opportunity to come here and to take a position at the Space Institute to help grow the overall community push to reinvigorate hypersonic research in the area around Tullahoma, particularly focused on AEDC.
okay. Yes, we do want to. Well, how about you and your family moved here a year ago? I didn't realize you'd been here a year.
Yeah, it's just been a year. Yeah. My wife, Brooke, and son, JD, are here with me and our 3 dogs, and we are, I tell you what, we love Tullahoma. We are thrilled to be here. I wish I'd figured out how to get here sooner. The community suits us very well. We're all extremely happy here, so we're very grateful to the community and the way we've been embraced.
Well, good. How old are your kids?
My son is 8.
8.
Yep.
All right. So you've certainly got him in the middle of the school system.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things we really admire about Tullahoma is a fantastic school system. When we first got here, the city had a reception for Glenn Liston and I, and at the same time they introduced and honored 6 of the National Merit finalists that come out of Tullahoma High School. That is really impressive. That I was very, very impressed with the quality not only of the students but of the school system itself. Good,
good. Glad to hear it. Okay. With that, folks, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and find some more about hypersonics.
All I have to do to think about what I was physically before and what I am now, and I don't ever want to go back to that original situation.
The overall mission of the rehab team is always what is best for the patient and how we can facilitate maximum potential from every resident.
Well, the most important thing to me is that I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do, you know.
Everyday miracles at Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Let the Smokehouse be your mountain getaway destination in beautiful Monteagle, Tennessee. Enjoy our cabins, restaurant, and old general store. Shop thesmokehouse.com featuring homemade barbecue sauces, jellies, and many other fine Tennessee products. Our live Music on the Mountain series features some of the best local and Nashville talent every Friday and Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. No cover, kids welcome.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Dr. John Schmisseur, who is a relatively newly established prof at UTSI, working in the hypersonic field and working very closely with the new research lab at the AEDC in hypersonics. Hypersonic, by the way, we're talking about speed.
Absolutely.
How much speed?
Well, it's really a function of where you are in the atmosphere, but at sea level, a general rule of thumb is anything above Mach 5, or 5 times the speed of sound. And in ballpark, that's about 3,500 miles per hour. So we're talking about very fast speeds, extremely fast flows. And one of the interesting things is it's not just the speed. We have to worry about chemistry at that point, because the air starts to break up and dissociate is a term for it. But now it's a big chemical soup of reacting molecules. We have to worry about where the energy is there as well. So it's a combination of speed, thermodynamics, and chemistry.
Okay. Give the folks a little bit of your professional background. You've been at this for a year or two.
Absolutely. So I started as a graduate student at the University of Texas, and while I was there, I was picked up in an Air Force program called Palace Night, which was designed to repopulate some of the advanced degree holders within the Air Force. At the time, the Air Force faced a mass retirement of their PhDs, so that the program was intended to support and develop new PhDs. After getting a master's at Texas, I went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, worked for 18 months, and then went to Purdue, where I got my PhD in aeronautics and astronautics engineering. That was really the beginning of my Air Force Research Laboratory career. I was a benchtop researcher at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for about 10 years, and then in 2001 I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and become a program manager with the Air Force Office of Scientific Research. So many of you are familiar with the concept of a university professor would perhaps write a proposal to the Air Force and ask that their research be funded. While I was at AFOSR from 2001 to 2014, I was the program manager in charge of the hypersonic aerodynamics portfolio. So when university professors would like funding from the Air Force to support their hypersonics research, that proposal came to me.
They had to talk to you.
I had to talk to me, and I basically ran that entire portfolio for the Air Force. Then a few years later, I had a chance to become a division chief and run a group of multiple program managers, and it wasn't too long after that that the opportunity down here opened up.
Yeah, I noticed there was some emphasis in, and we don't always see this in the engineering technical community, the fact that you are considered to have some management experience, and as you're laying it out quite a bit, sounds like. Good. So, okay. Well, all right, hypersonic, and so tell us what you're going to be. Well, let me ask a question first. What are we going to do with hypersonics? Is this something that we're approaching primarily as a part of national security? Is this a defense operation? Does it also have some more broad-based outer space activities? What are we looking at here?
That's a great question, Tom. There's really 3 primary applications for hypersonics. The first and the thing we're interested in today is as a national defense system, primarily for high-speed weapons. And right now we face increasing geopolitical issues where the ability to stand off and strike people from further away has a lot of value. In fact, the national defense posture has been considering how we might shift our focus to the Pacific eventually. And as you know, there's not a lot of land base out there. So the ability to have something with lots of range and speed is very important. So what's driving the bus today?
Right now we're going to be relying primarily on aircraft carriers
and missiles.
Those planes. And missiles, yes.
There's a widely published understanding that our aircraft carriers need to stand off a little further from different places, and if we can increase the range of their missiles, we're better off.
Oh, yes.
But after that, space access, the ability to get something to orbit more efficiently right now. One of my PhD advisor, Purdue, used to say that if we could, and this was back in the days when gold was much more cheap, if you could take a pound of lead into space, turn it into pure gold, and still bring it home, you'd still be losing money. And the fact is, the cost of taking things to space is so expensive that if we really want to make use of space, getting there much more efficiently is to our benefit. And so hypersonics and air breathing systems that aren't carrying around oxidizer in their systems actually have the opportunity to be much more economically efficient in terms of getting things to space. And so that's something in 15 to 20 years you may be seeing more of. And then in the long term, we will often talk about the Orient Express, the idea that we might be able to take off from here in Tennessee, have dinner in Sydney, and get back in time to go to bed. That is probably a long ways off, but perhaps one day we'll keep dreaming about that. That's inspired a lot of people thinking about hypersonics, but that's probably towards the end of my lifetime if we see that at all.
Back to the defense element a minute. Are we primarily interested in offense, defense, or some of both?
Well, sometimes the best defense is a good offense. What we really want to be able to do is have our assets operate in a way that they can reach out and touch people without being touched themselves. Sometimes the best way to operate is to be able to stand outside the range of your potential adversaries, yet having them know that you can reach out and influence what they're doing. And that's one of our primary goals.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's talk a little more nuts and bolts. What are you going to be doing at UTSI?
Absolutely. So we're setting up a brand new research group. It's called the Horizon Group, and that's designed to make people think about, in Air Force speak, Horizon is forward thinking, scientifically driven, thinking about new and exciting technical concepts. And that goes back to the von Karman's original report to General Arnold on Towards New Horizons that really set the shape and strategy for the future Air Force when the Air Force was first formed. So we have our name is a little bit throwback, but we want people to be thinking that we are thinking about the future and trying to be innovative in our approach. So the Horizon Group is going to focus on fundamentals of hypersonics. We are going to we're building 3 new wind tunnels, and they're all going to be complementary to what's currently at ADC.
UTSI?
At UTSI. We're building a fairly unique configuration called a Ludwig tube. So it's a very simple configuration. It's very economical to run. We estimate that our cost per run will be on the orders of tens of dollars. And I joke, it's not polite to ask what run costs are, but that's probably 5 to 6 factors of 10 less than it would cost you to go into one of the big government facilities and do a run.
Well, I was wondering how large are you talking about for these?
So our tunnels are actually going to approach the size of those at ADC. But the difference is our run times will be much different. We're going to have the whole run over in a matter of 1 or 2 seconds. And using very fast laser-based diagnostics, fast new modern instrumentation, we'll get all the data we need. In fact, in my PhD dissertation, the entire sum of data for my 3 or 4 years of research was probably 4 or 5 minutes. So we can do an awful lot in a very short amount of time, and if you set up your tunnels to run very briefly, you can make them very economical.
And you're going to have 3?
Yes, sir. We need them. There's a great drive for
Are there three the same or 3 different?
We're going to set up our first one at Mach 4. The next one is going to be at Mach 6. And if those go well, we're going to set up a very unique facility called a quiet tunnel at Mach 5. And that Mach 4 to 6 range is set up to address the area for an air-breathing missile the Air Force is currently most interested in.
Air-breathing missiles, okay.
Think about a hypersonic replacement to the current Tomahawk missile. We have cruise missiles. Think about a hypersonic version of that.
Okay. Well, what is you've got 3 tunnels. What's Liston going to have out at the center?
Glenn's working on bringing back an old tunnel called Tunnel D. He's got a variable Mach number tunnel. So ours will be fixed Mach number. We'll have one set of nozzles that'll give us the conditions for Mach number we designed to. Glenn's tunnel will have a variable metal plate inside of it, and he'll be able to adjust that to adjust the Mach number. I think the difference between Glenn's tunnel and ours is Glenn's going to have a 1-foot test section. Our small tunnel will have a 2 by 2 foot or a 4-foot test section. And our goal is really to, from the academic side, be able to start bridging the gap between smaller scale research tunnels and the large test tunnels that you see in the Von Karman complex and at Tunnel 9 at ADC. We want to start bringing advanced instrumentation, great new measurements to the scales that you see in the test facility and help start to transition those things into use for the large tunnels at ADC. And so having a large tunnel really helps with that development as you want to take things into the ADC facilities.
Okay. So initially, then your 3 tunnels are kind of going to be more single purpose, and whereas his are going to be adjustable so that he can, or variable so that he can do.
We'll be studying much the same phenomena. I mean, Glenn will have one facility that'll allow him to vary Mach number, but there's a lot of things that we'll be able to vary in our tunnels. Because of the design, I can change the pressure in my tunnel very easily. And as a result, I can change something called the Reynolds number, which is a very important parameter for aerodynamic testing. We'll be able to change that over a factor of about 10. We'll actually have a very flexible, very powerful tunnel just at a fixed Mach number. A lot of our other conditions will be able to vary. In fact, we'll be able to change our test gas. So instead of testing with air, we could test carbon dioxide and consider that we're flying through the Martian atmosphere, or some other mix of gases that the Air Force or DOD may find relevant.
Okay. How are you two coming together? Well, wait, excuse me. Before we get into that, I see he's flashed my time sign. We need to take a short commercial break, and we'll come back, folks, and talk some more.
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
You made the time and the sacrifice to broaden their horizons, to see their smiles, but mostly to make lifelong memories. We think it's time to do it again, just the two of you. Don't let illness or injury slow you down. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
I'm meteorologist Leland Statham from the News Channel 5 Weather Center. Look to Jim Fuller and crew for local news night here on Channel 6.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Dr. John Schmisseur, who is coming to UTSI and will be teaching and doing research in the, well, maybe teaching in more than hypersonics. And they're considerably expanding portions of the organization out there, and of course he's setting up also research facilities at UTSI, and then whatever they're doing there will be working closely with the Air Force at the new lab being set up there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Let me start by asking you, you're going to have 3 wind tunnels. What are you going to put in them? What sort of hardware are we going to be looking at?
We're going to run a variety of things. We're going to do some very basic shapes, such as simple cones that you might consider to be the nose tip of a high-speed vehicle. We'll also put representative models that look at high-speed inlets. So in a scramjet or air-breathing engine, the air has to enter into that engine to begin with. In fact, my personal research area has to do with the flow that goes into those high-speed inlets. And so we're going to have a lot of models that capture the basic physical phenomena of those high-speed inlets without all the complexity of an actual inlet you might hang on an airplane. We don't have a lot of the little valves and gates and other things associated with them, but we'll have things that model those inlets and capture the right physics. And we're developing those models. In fact, we've got a project sponsored by the Navy right now where we're doing a very simple flat plate configuration to develop a flow over that. We're putting shock generators on that flat plate to look at how the shock behaves under certain conditions.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We haven't really mentioned that. You know, how you gonna start from the ground and put some machine in up in the upper atmosphere, you know, so it can fly at Mach 5.
You know, a lot of these things.
What kind of propulsion are we talking about?
So we're talking about something generally called Scram Jet Propulsion. Now, a lot of these may be hybrid systems where you may start with a conventional system on the ground, with a traditional turbine, a jet engine. You may have a rocket that gets you to a certain point. Then at a certain point, once you get going fast enough, we take over with what's called the Scram Jet Propulsion. So a Scram Jet is basically a jet engine, take out all the moving parts. And the actual velocity of the air into that engine and through the inlet, which I talked about is my area of specialty, compresses the air to very high pressures and temperatures. You add fuel. Because of the high pressure and temperature, that fuel burns, then adds more energy. You expand it out the nozzle and create thrust. Imagine
is it burning or exploding?
It's going to be a controlled explosion. But that whole thing, imagine a jet engine with no moving parts. It's called a ramjet when the flow through the engine is subsonic, and a scramjet when the flow through the engine is supersonic. A colleague of mine who does propulsion research has one of the best taglines on that ever. Trying to keep that engine lit, imagine trying to light a match and keep it lit in a hurricane. That's the type of challenge we face trying to insert fuel and mix it and burn it inside a scramjet engine.
Well, that sounds like it ought to be challenging enough. Okay. Tell us a little bit more about how you and the AEDC operation are going to relate to each other.
Absolutely. So back when I worked for the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, I did a lot of collaborative work with AEDC, and I'd been down here several times. So I was probably at AEDC every couple of years throughout my entire career. I have a lot of colleagues down here, a lot of great folks I've worked with in the past. Now, with the new AFRL group, Glenn Liston and I have known each other probably a decade. And I want to note that I think Glenn is fantastic in that job. He has such a knowledge of the systems that the Air Force is developing. He really knows all our different programs and the types of technical objectives our systems have. When you bring me in on the other side, my familiarity with all the university research and the science that's being done, I think two of us together actually make a great team to be able to cover the full spectrum of hypersonics in the Air Force here in the AEDC community. So I'm really excited to have Glenn there. When I managed university research for the Air Force, Glenn's new hires were all getting PhDs, and I was fortunate to have actually sponsored a number of them through their PhD studies. And I can tell you, those guys are world class. They are some of the best researchers in the world in the current generation that have been recently graduated. We're very fortunate to have them there. They are really impressive.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think he's, well, not sure that my memory is that correct, that he was looking something on the order of a dozen top flight research engineers. So, okay, a lot of whom you already know and have been sponsoring. So, okay, and anything else with regard to how the two of you work together? That
we try and interact on a fairly daily basis. As he's trying to bring his tunnel back online, we've offered our existing Mach 1.8 wind tunnel at UTSI to them to run things intermittently. So we've in fact got them coming over Monday afternoon, hopefully, to get together and have a little group meeting and talk about how we're going to work together over the next few months to try and do some joint research. So we are very closely collaborating. We talk a lot, and we have a lot of intertwined plans going forward, particularly in the next year.
Yeah, we need to remember that his operation is going to take some time to get up to speed, and he's got the stuff he has to do to the wind tunnels out there is pretty big stuff. It is major and slow. Yeah.
Both of us are in the same boat. I like to remind people what we're talking about here is building a new football program. You know, these things take a while. You've got to recruit. You've got to get things working together. And then once things are going pretty well, you've got to fine-tune them to get to the championship level. And it's going to take both of us a number of years to get to where we want to be, but the vector's in the right direction. We're really making great progress. We both hired a lot of bright young folks, and we're definitely heading in the right direction.
Good. Super. All right. And this is a major new undertaking for UTSI, so that's good. Well, folks, with that, we have kind of run out of time. We're going to have to take a short commercial break and wrap up.
The Kia Summers on Us sales event is going on right now at Russell Barnett Kia of Tullahoma. Let me tell you about this event. Purchase a new Kia Sedona, Kia Optima, Kia Forte, and receive 0% financing up to 66 months and your first 3 payments for free. For a limited time only, no strings attached. With America's best warranty, the 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, Kia is the power to surprise. The Kia Summers on Us sales event going on right now. Why buy anywhere else?
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We've been talking today, folks, with Dr. John Schmisseur, who is newly established at UTSI, and he's doing research and teaching in the hypersonic area and working very closely with the new hypersonic lab group at AEDC. So, Dr. Schmisseur, you got a little something you'd like to say direct to the folks?
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you. I just want to share with all of y'all out there what an exciting time it is for aerospace, particularly here in the state of Tennessee. Aerospace is moving to the south in an unprecedented fashion. The Air Force really views Tullahoma and ADC as the epicenter of how they're going to develop a high-speed capability. So we're seeing an exciting future in front of us. I want to say how grateful I've been to all our community and local leaders and state leaders for understanding and embracing the possibility we have in front of us. UTSI has, through the state, been awarded funding for a brand new Mach 6 hypersonic tunnel that's, again, going to complement what's going on at AEDC, not compete with it. But the future is bright for high-speed flows here, and I think a lot of the future things we see going to fly are going to have this Made in Tullahoma stamp on it back in the future. I'm excited to be part of that. So thank you very much for having me today.
Well, that's great. And that's great news for us. You know, there have been times when we have sort of puzzled about the future of AEDC, and so this sounds quite encouraging. I want to thank you again for taking time to join us. We appreciate that, and I hope we've given you a better idea, folks, of what the hypersonic world is going to be over the next few years. And meanwhile, thanks for inviting us into your parlor, and we will see you next time.